welcome to today's special edition of Beyond the Ordinary show. It's especially beyond the ordinary. How about that? Wait, hold on a second. Y'all feel into that for a second. Okay, there's things going on in the world. We're shifting. The energy is changing. All these things are in flux. But y'all feel the energy of being extraordinarily beyond the ordinary and the feeling of hope and excitement that conjures. That just landed for me, but it's wow. It says yes, Karen Curry Parker has been inviting me into the specialty of really being beyond the ordinary and calling me up. And the way she uses the science that you'll become aware of here as we deepen into tonight's program. And Karen's going to take live Q&A also. So if you want to ask her your personal question, take advantage of this. But the way she takes that science and takes it to another level and brings in her compassion, her ability of connecting to see potentiality and to open doorway is extraordinary. And so again, today we're going to be talking about transforming your relationships with quantum human design. If you don't know what that means, or if you think you have information about what it might mean, Karen's going to give you a PhD in education in the next 60 minutes about it. Okay, I may be exaggerating a little bit, but you're going to understand a lot more from a perspective that is really quantifies the energy in the bigness. It relates to you in that expanded state that you truly are. We're just remembering and unraveling and doing all these things. So it's going to be an amazing program. Sit back, enjoy. If you feel compelled to ask your question, raise your hand and let it go. We will get to all the right questions, I promise. And let me tell you a little bit more about Karen. I'm going to read from her bio. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm not going to read from her bio, Karen. Karen, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's good to be here, and it's good to connect with you again and your people.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell us how it is that you work with clients and these, I want to call them tools, but they're so much more than tools.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think I'll probably just make it simple, because I think I'm not that different than probably anyone who feels like they have a purpose and a mission to transform the world. And certainly I would say, whatever label you want to use for yourself, whether you're a healer or a light worker or a thought leader or somebody who you just know has a deep purpose to usher in this change in the cycle that you're in, you probably, like me, have a lot of tools in your toolkit. I think that I do a lot of professional level trainings in some of the tools that I use. And I find that I think most of us at this point are Renaissance healers, if you want to call us that. And so when you say, how do I work with clients? First of all, I don't really work with clients anymore. I really do professional level trainings. I am building what I like to call an army of love. And part of what I train my army of love to do is to use a system called human design and sort of a more evolved version of it called quantum human design, to help people redefine their personal story so that they regain control over what they choose to create and experience in their lives. And that's really the simplest way for me to put it. I do other things. I've integrated it with energy psychology, intuition. I've integrated it with the homeopathic remedies and flower essences and all kinds of other stuff. But really at the root of it, I help people remember who they are so that they don't settle for less.
And I love that you talked about professional training as well, because that also takes me into where you're meeting people with who they really are rather than a version of themselves that they believe they are, which can be a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's really what's up for us right now. The way I keep seeing it is all through the last couple of years with COVID and everything, I keep getting drawn back to Viktor Frankl and his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the things that Viktor Frankl talks about a lot is there's stimulus, so you experience things in your life, and there's response. And basically what he says is the only thing you can control is that gap between stimulus and your response. when we have stories, when we have beliefs, when, as you just said, when we're telling stories about ourselves that really are not true, that deny our authentic identity, that are rooted in trauma or ancestral trauma, those stories occupy that space between stimulus and response. And so our response then gets filtered through those experiences, those stories, those traumas, and we lose control over how we want to choose to show up, how we want to choose to create. And so part of what we work on and part of what I train people to do is help people get back in control of what's in that gap between stimulus and response, so that you are no longer reactive. You're gaining back sovereignty over your own story. And when you gain sovereignty over that story, then your response becomes deliberate. It becomes intentionally creative. It allows you on a personal level to tap into your natural state of well-being, support, abundance, connection. And on a bigger level, when we gain back control over that story, it actually brings us in a high frequency state. When we're living true to who we are, our vibrational frequency goes up. And what happens is when we're creating from that space of pure alignment, when you walk into a room, you don't have to bring, and I'm sorry if I'm not trying to be violent, but you don't have to bring a gun or a stick or a loud voice or any of the things we're trained to think are power or powerful. You bring your energy into the room and you influence and you change the room. You change the room just by being there. You create an opening of energy and you entrain the rest of the energy in the room, and there's a space there for things to shift because you did the work first. So, I really do believe right now at this point on the planet, the most important thing we have to do is we got to go back in here and start looking at what stories are we telling. Sometimes it's, honestly, what lies are we telling about ourselves? Right. And how do we rewrite that? How do we take back control over that? What do we need to clear? And I think as we clear it, we're really literally clearing it in all directions of time. We're clearing out the old stories. We're reclaiming the truth from the old stories. We're defining for ourselves in this present moment, who are we going to choose to be? And as we start to get back control over that truth, then whatever we create in the future has a very different foundation from which to build from.
How does your work with the modality of human design and quantum human design really engender this awareness and this growth of self, of actualizing that truth, of overcoming the limiting beliefs that we seem to define ourselves on over and over again?
So I'll just throw out here, because not everybody knows about human design, although more people know about it now than before. But human design is, I guess you would call it a personality assessment system. It's a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. Basically, what you do is you use your birthday, birth time, and birthplace, just like with astrology. You punch it into a computer program and it spits out a map. And this map shows you basically, I like to call it, it's the outline of your soul curriculum. It tells you what you're here to learn, what your challenges are going to be, how you experience the world, your best decision-making capacities. The way that I use it is it's a tool. I like to think of it as kind of a Rolodex. And it's a Rolodex of ancient and modern cross-cultural archetypes. If you think about your life, or our lives, or individual lives, our lives are just a story. And those stories, really, if we start to look at them, those stories have some pretty finite, fixed components. And those components are, they've been consistent over thousands of years. If you go back and you look at, the Chinese I Ching and the stories in the Chinese I Ching, those stories are just as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. So the human story is kind of got some fixed elements, archetypes in it. What human design does is it allows us to codify or to measure or to look at, well, what story is mine in this lifetime? What's in my soul curriculum? When people show up and we say, okay, you need to work on your abundance, or you need to work on your value story, or you need to work on your relationship story. That's great. That's good advice. But the next question is, well, how? what parts of the story do I need to look at? How do I write the story so that it becomes mine and it embodies not only what I need to learn, but what I want? And so I use human design as really a tool to help people explore their story and gain back control over their story and get, start telling it the way they want to tell it. So I'll just say, we know, like for you, that part of your story, and I'm not going to pull your covers too much here, John, but I know part of your story, you're a powerful and charismatic leader. It's part of your design. It's in your chart. I have the privilege of knowing your chart. In the shadow of that, you may have experienced times in your life where maybe you struggled with feeling empowered, with maybe you didn't know how to tap into that power, or how to tap into that power in a way that really embodied the quality of power that you wanted to choose to express in the world. And so looking at that chart and going, oh, this theme of power is a big part of what I'm here to learn in this lifetime. And it's a big part of what I'm here ultimately to give and to serve through in this lifetime. And when you can understand what that looks like in your chart and the vocabulary that goes along with it, when I can tell you, John, you're designed to be powerful and charismatic, which you are, right? Then you can start to look at, okay, well, what does power mean to me? And how do I write a narrative that is powerful, that feels good to me, that's in alignment with my integrity and my value and my self-worth and my purpose and my mission? So it's just a really beautiful way to codify the story, so you don't have to go figuring it out and trying to, go down rabbit holes, trying to get clear.
Yeah, it's an impressive body of work. And the way that you bring it in and the way that you quantify it and bring in the quantum level of it, tell us more about that, because that's where it starts getting really good for me.
So part of what I have to start with is just give a little bit of history of human design, because human design is a revealed wisdom. It was received by a man named Ra Uru, and he spent a good bit of his life teaching and sharing the information, the basics of traditional human design. When he was given this information, he was told by a voice, he calls it the voice, he was told that this information is here to transform the world, and that for people to really understand it, the words that he was trained to use first, or told to use first, would be the words that would speak to people who were not living true to who they were. It was an initiating language. It was designed to kind of provoke you and shock you a little bit and wake you up. What he didn't get a chance to do, because he passed in 2011, is he always said he wanted to write the evolved vocabulary for human design. And he never got the chance to do that. There was so much that he had to teach, and he worked so hard. And so when he passed, I sat with this idea of, well, there's a different vocabulary for the system that's available, and it's just not here yet. And of course, I have to just also add, my personal background I have a therapeutic background. I'm a nurse by training. I was one of the very first life coaches trained by Thomas Leonard in the 1990s. I've done it, it's always been a question to me of, okay, it's great, give somebody a reading, but then what? How do you actually use it as a tool? And so what I did was I took the language from traditional human design. I always laugh because this is my favorite book. This is Rodale's synonym
Oh,
finder.
wow, I love that.
I took all the words in human design and found all the synonyms for them. And I actually took this language into the lab. So language has frequencies. Literally, you can measure the frequency of a word. It carries a sound frequency. So we took all these words into the lab, and we started measuring the frequency of these vocabulary words, this language. And I chose the highest frequency vocabulary that I could for every archetype and every element in the human design chart. So I call it quantum human design. And really, you need both. It's not one is better or different than the other. Traditional human design is about waking up. Quantum human design is about consciously building a story and learning about who you can grow into becoming, and building that story big enough to call you forward. When we look at the quantum field, and we look at how do we engage in the quantum field right now at this very moment, any of us listening to this, you're basically sitting in an energetic soup of infinite potentials. At this point, at any moment, based on any kind of a shift you make in consciousness, you could drop into, or you could bring into your experience an entirely different reality if you know how. The key to doing that is shifting the meanings of the elements of the story you're telling. So if I say the word money, right? Money is a supercharged word, or we're kind of talking about relationships. So if I say the word soulmate, right? Supercharged word for a lot of people. So I might think soulmate, and I might have, a certain emotional, physiological response to that word. You might have a different word. Somebody else you might have a different response. Somebody else listening might have a different response. What happens is when I say the word soulmate, your brain, everybody else's brain, our brains start a photon storm. There's actually a storm of light that happens in our brain. That photon storm stimulates your body to create an emotional frequency of energy. That emotional frequency of energy in turn calibrates your heart, and it either brings it into a state of coherence where it's attractive and compelling, or incoherence where it's actually repelling and actually takes us away from our well-being. The thing that determines which neurotransmitters do I produce that creates that specific emotional response and that consequent attunement to my heart is going to be the meanings I have around soulmate. So let's say I just broke up with my soulmate and I thought that was it and I'm done and I'm feeling maybe a little bitter, and that's my emotional response. And that's the meanings that I have about the word soulmate. Then that's what I'm going to be creating. And that's actually the potential that I'm going to be pulling into my physical experience out of the quantum field. The meanings that we hold determine what we create. They literally affect our body. They actually literally affect our DNA, which is part of the research that I'm working on right now with my PhD. So when we can start to shift those meanings, if I can start clearing the trauma of, say, the bad breakup by using energy psychology or whatever. I'm not married to my techniques. There's so many beautiful techniques out there, right? But if we start clearing those meanings and all of a sudden I say soulmate and you're like, yeah, bring it, right? Then you're going to have a whole different physiological response. Your point of attraction is going to change. You're going to drop into a state of coherence. And all of a sudden, your mind is going to start seeing opportunities and experiences that are going to match the meanings that you hold. So quantum human design really helps people look at how do they reframe those meanings so that they have really high quality, high frequency meanings associated with the story they tell about their lives.
I love that. And as we get into those different meanings and as we start reinterpreting those stories, Karen, some of the things that I'll say have navigated through is like, then how do I voice or explain or demonstrate what it is that I'm really trying to attract? How do I communicate it in a way that's understood? Because a lot of these things, when we get into the healing aspect and when we couldn't quite have ownership of it because of whatever limiting beliefs, we have to then reinterpret our language and get familiar in how we ask what we're asking for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I like that you said asking, because part of what I teach in conjunction with quantum human design is that we don't have to figure out that answer. That really what we have to do is ask for the answer. That actually, if we look at how we're hardwired for engaging in the quantum field through questioning, which I think is beautiful, because if we think about, the phrase ask and it is given, if I look at the human design chart, which to me is really just how the human story is hardwired, and basically it's kind of the instruction manual, or I like to think of it like if you were going to remodel your kitchen, it's like the electrical wiring in the kitchen, right? Except it's not the kitchen, it's your human story. The electrical wiring in the human story says we're designed to create in collaboration with the quantum field through asking questions. And so we can get into and say, well, how do we do this, and what modality do we use, and what infinitesimal whatever on my epigene do I need to remove? Or we can just say, hey, universe, this sucks. I hate it. I really want to change it. I'm trying to get myself back into alignment with something better. What do I need to do to heal this meaning? Because it's time, right? That's all we have to do. And that, I think that's kind of radically simple. But what's so beautiful is that at that point, we've triggered the seed already in the quantum field. We've already said, by asking that question, hey, what's the possibility of this showing up differently in my life? And the universe is going to show you a bajillion different ways to start unfolding the answer to that question. You might run into a friend who's going to say, hey, I just learned about EMDR. You should think about going and doing EMDR. And something in your body is going to be like, oh, that sounds right for me. And all of a sudden you go call somebody and you do EMDR. Or somebody might say, hey, I'm getting ready to go do a whale watching trip in Baja, and I feel like you really need to be there with me. Can you come? Who knows what'll happen? Who knows? Because there's an infinite number of possibilities, but it's not ours to figure out. It's ours to work in collaboration with the quantum field, and to do that through asking and to see what shows up.
I love with the relationship with the quantum field, because we are talking today about transforming our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we transform our relationships with the quantum, I guess we're also learning, I know, we're learning how to transform our relationships with others at the same time. Why this topic of relationships for you right now, Karen? Why is this something that you're so guided to put out for us to receive?
Because I think it's the next step in the soul curriculum. And it's kind of the ultimate place where we have to regain sovereignty over the story. And certainly, just on a very real level, right now, all of our relationships are up for reevaluation, right? Many of us have settled for less than what we want and need. It's very easy for us, I think, even sometimes for us in the spiritual community, to say, okay, this is the kind of person I want to be in relationship with. I don't know how it is for you, but I know that before I manifested my husband, I had this long list of like, this is the person that I want to be with. And now, when he showed up, I was like, wow, he's not this, he's not that, he's not this, he's not that. What the heck, universe? But it was, here we are 15 years and a kid, really 8 kids later. So there's magic there. There's a lot of tension in the world. There's a lot of divisiveness in the world. There's disruption and dis-ease in the world. And a lot of it is rooted in relationships. Relationships is a really powerful arena where oftentimes we play out the karma of our own sense of value. And so when we can learn to show up in our relationships with our own sense of value intact, with our lovability intact, with our authenticity intact, with our self-trust intact, with our sense of self-empowerment intact, with our courage intact, with our willingness to show up and really be present to others, whether it's the mayor in your community or your neighbor or your soulmate. When we can be in the flow of genuinely loving, and love is a verb, loving people, it creates the crowbar that can, lift more weight than anything we do in our brains, and even with government to a certain degree. It'll help us influence government. So it's huge. It's huge right now. And it's huge, not just in terms of romantic relationships, it's community relationships. It's the relationships we build with our children, because more than anything in the world, our children need a foundation that allows them to stay connected to who they are and how they are. And we can't do that as parents or grandparents if we don't understand how to really be in relationship.
That's so beautiful. And it's so true. And it's those yearnings. I would say that everybody on this call and listening to the replay, community belonging is something that we yearn for. Mm-hmm. And we look at it and we travel and we listen to shows and we go to Karen's programs and all this, and we find a sense of community, and there's a depth that goes on a computer screen, or what I call in retreats that are beautiful, but I call them one night stands, because you show up, you make love, you orgasm, and you leave, and you wonder, okay, where'd love go, right?
Right.
And so, we get to places like, wait, where's that intimacy that I felt so strongly in these other places showing up as a mirror in my daily occurrence in my life? How can I be the expression of that and gift that to another and it be reciprocated at the same time? So this topic of relationship, after we're aware of whatever limiting beliefs that we have are coming up with, that they can be held in relationship for transformation, after even before, but I've got to expand, I've got to extend, I've got to get to a certain level. It's like, what's primary in this? And again, relationships for me Talking to my guides and going out of my body and traveling different places at night, it's like, I don't need to do anything. It's safe, kind of, for the most part, even though part of it may be scary at times. Relationships are scary. They're vulnerable. They can trigger our vulnerabilities. They can trigger our not enoughness. They can expand us to places that we feel uncomfortable expanding into. So what you're hinting on, and this point in time that we are carrying of, it's about collaboration. It's not about me here and me there. It's about we, and we're building for the collective. We are healing ourselves for our own benefit, but also as a collective, we're healing for the benefit of the collective.
Right.
For our daughters, for our sons, for our grandkids, for the generations that are coming.
Right. Right. Totally. And, you know, we can't create peace if we ourselves are not individually at peace in our partnerships and all of our relationships. And so, you know, the relationships that you build, when you can build good, healthy, strong, you know, mutually respectful, consensual, loving, value-based relationships, then, and you're doing that on a personal level, then we can add our peace, our holographic heart, if you will, to constructing peace in the world. And you said the not enoughness piece. And I really think the not enoughness piece is one of the biggest pieces we have to tackle in relationships, because what happens is when we don't understand or embrace our own enoughness, when we walk into a relationship, and this is actually in the human design chart, when we walk into a relationship, the first thing we do is we project onto our partner that, oh, they're going to fill the places where I'm not enough or I'm lacking in some way. And so we immediately start giving our power to someone else, right? And then, of course, because it's an impossible equation, you know, within a certain period of time, the next thing that happens is that person's not fulfilling that job you just gave them to come rescue you and fix you and heal all those parts. And then we're like, oh, that's not the one, right? Instead of realizing, okay, wait, what's going to be different if I show up in the partnership in connection with my own value? I know who I am. I know what I'm here to do. I know how I am. I'm willing to create an integrity with myself. I have nothing to prove. I don't have to misuse my resources. I don't have to do things to my body that don't feel right. I don't have to be out of moral integrity. I don't have to be out of energetic integrity. I can stand in integrity with my value and be present. And even if we don't end up getting married or whatever the end result is, we can still be at peace with each other, and we can walk away and not have parts of ourselves break off and be broken.
I love that. What I see also happening in community also is people are doing their own self-help. They're going through this progression and they're getting to know themselves more intimately. And they've done so much work. And I hear it from women all the time. And I'm sure it's the same for men, but I wish I could find someone who's done the work. I wish I could meet someone who can meet me at my level. There's this judgment, and it comes across with an air of superiority.
I'm going to tell you a secret. My husband does not meet me at my level. and that's kind of a joke, but you know, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I use my husband as a really great example, because my husband is, if you remember back to when we read Harry Potter books before all the other stuff with Harry Potter, but you know, my husband is a muggle. Like, he has no clue what human design is. He has no clue about astrology, anything. He looks at me like, oh yeah, you know, he is really, he's a very earth-based being. And, you know, I would say we are as different as can be. We're definitely not on the same level. And I love him wildly. I love him wildly. Because I get him and I get myself. And that's really the biggest piece. I get myself, and I can walk into that relationship and he is wildly ADD. He's really probably the smartest human I ever met. And just like, he's like a lightning bolt, the way he thinks about things. If I didn't have my own sense of self intact, and I walked in and I had said to him, hey, I need you to can you clean the dishes, please? But in the process of doing that, a story came on NPR, and then he went and got a book, and then he went out on the front porch, and then he saw somebody and he started talking to them, and the dishes are still in the sink, right? And that happens. That's our life sometimes. If I wasn't able to say, okay, I'm enough, the dishes didn't get done, that's on him. He'll figure it out. and walk away completely detached from the potential. And 20 years ago, I would have been like, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't love me. I'm not important enough for him to dedicate himself to the business, to the dishes first. If I don't bring all that stuff into the relationship, it doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter if he doesn't understand, source, and he's uncomfortable with the word God, and he thinks that new moon rituals are ridiculous. It doesn't matter.
What a 369 is or whatever, right?
Right, right. So, yeah.
Oh, it's so wonderful. So this is a wonderful topic and a good awareness, y'all. And I'm glad that we're bringing this in because it's that relationship component, the co-creative component. We can't do this solo. And we're in a huge initiation of receiving. Mm-hmm. But I also have to tell you that it's in the receiving that you can actually give. Mm-hmm. In the receiving, without the sense of the prickliness of expectations, that you can give to others without expectation. Mm-hmm. And we're in this huge transformational process that is really shifting the world to diminish the warring, to diminish the extreme separation and bring us back together in ways that we've never been. And we can get excited about that, and it begins with us. And so the why is amazing. The relationship, no matter where you are in relationship, there's always more vulnerable places and expansions and letting go of expectation of boxes that we contain, and they're shifting. Mm-hmm. And y'all get the why, and there's a heart yearning and a calling for that through community, through intimate relationships, through relationship with our kids, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. April, do me a favor. In the chat box, put in the special offer so that people can have access to it. Y'all, right there in the chat box is the link for the special offer. Click on that because this is going to expand this conversation. If you can't find the link in the chat box for whatever reason, open up a new browser. You'll still be able to hear us, and type in beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Karen28. Take you to that same page. And Karen, I want you to take us into the how now. And this is what the special offer is about. And it'll expand this conversation. So if you're interested in the special offer, which I highly encourage you to participate, especially the way Karen teaches, she does professional training, right? She's speaking on your level. This is going to land and expand. Anyway, click on the special offer. This is the training. This is the how, Karen. Guide us through what you're offering through this program you've put together for your community and now for ours. Thank you.
So I would say the very first step in creating a deep and true intimate partnership is you got to know yourself. You have to understand, how do you receive energy? What do you need to feel grounded, loved, and supported? You have to understand what's your learning style, what's your bonding style. You have to understand, do you need alone time? Do you need, how much partnership energy do you need? There's so many elements about yourself that you've got to know first. And oftentimes what happens in the beginning process of us learning to understand ourselves is we also have to then go through a process of healing all those stories where we've been told it's not okay for us to be who we are or how we are. So for example, a large percentage of us are designed to learn in life by experimenting, right? We have to sometimes make mistakes first to figure it out. Yeah, I know, me too. And that's an essential part of many of our personalities. And if over our lives we've been told, why are you always screwing up? Why can't you get it right? Why can't you make, if we've internalized that message and we take that into relationships, then oftentimes we're afraid to bring that vulnerability, that experimentation to the table. We're afraid to get it wrong if we have to ask for what we want and need. So step one is you got to understand who you are. Step two is you also have to understand your partner. And part of that's understanding the energy dynamics of your partner. I find that in the work that I've done with people in partnerships is the very first thing you've got to understand is that 90% of what you think is problematic with your partner is just part of their personality. So again, I'll go back to my beautiful husband, right? My beautiful husband is a provocative person by design. He purposely says things that gets under people's skin. He thinks that's funny. And now, okay, he does. It's hard to watch. And it's especially hard to watch because we live in the Midwest and it's really shocking to people. But he's provocative by design. He's also deeply emotional, which is beautiful because he'll cry about things like puppies and grandbabies, but also he also can lose his temper a lot, and so understanding that about him and going, oh, he's not poking on and provoking me on purpose to get under my skin, like in a negative way. He's just a provocative person. He's here actually to break up old patterns. That's part of who he is. And part of what he does is he's like the kid in the story, The Emperor's No Clothes, right? There are new clothes. He's like, hey, the emperor's naked. And everybody's like, shh. He's like, but it's true, right? So knowing that part about him helps me go, oh, these things that I think are irritating, or I've been told by our society are irritating about this person, are actually elements of who he is. The second thing really that we have to do is we also have to redefine what is a good relationship. If we're really honest, we have a lot of fantasies about relationships. There is, and we are trained that we're going to see our partner, we're going to make eye contact from 100 million miles across the beach. We're going to run to each other in slow motion, and that's it. We're never going to have a fight. We're going to have great sex all the time. We're going to talk about everything and anything. We're not going to have any. It's like that doesn't happen. I mean, maybe it does, but that's not the norm. And the thing we have to also understand is that in a good relationship, relationships go through cycles and they're healthy. In the beginning, the first phases of your relationships, you're probably dating your parents, whether you like it or not. And actually, if we go back and we run your parents' human design charts and we run the charts of all your, your first boyfriend, girlfriend, lovers, you're going to be like, oh my God, I've been dating my parents, right? We have to go through these cycles where we start to differentiate ourselves within the relationship and differentiate ourselves outside of our relationship patterns. And that means we're going to go through these initial cycles where there's a lot of attraction and a lot of juice and a lot of things that feel common and familiar, but at a certain point that wears off. And then you got to do the real work in the partnership. And knowing that's a normal part of the relationship. And that doesn't mean that the relationship is broken. That means the relationship is growing. And that now you get the opportunity to work your soul curriculum through your partnership. And that it's an important part of your own growth to start looking at what's mine, what's theirs, where do these two pieces dovetail? And then lastly, the third part of the relationship is you go into a state where you really learn to love, respect, and accept your partner for who they are. But first you have to learn to love and respect and accept yourself for who you are. So you literally, as I said, in step 3 here, you literally are what you attract. And certainly if you're saying, oh, there's no good people out there, everybody's dysfunctional or everybody's blah, 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 I'm going to lovingly and gently invite you to take a little bit of a journey back to the mirror and ask yourself, why am I having this experience? And I'm not going to say that you literally are the same as the person you're attracting, because that's not exactly how it works, but you are a vibrational match. And there's some, because it is literally physically impossible for you to not be a vibrational match to what you're experiencing in your dating life or your relationship life. And that doesn't mean, and I really want to encourage everybody to, this isn't like you're broken, stuck, and blocked and it's all your fault. It's not. There's a lot going on, and it's not that simple to distill it down to you're a vibrational match for what you're creating. And there's an opportunity there for you to explore, well, why am I in this pattern? What's going on in this story? Oftentimes there's stuff underneath that we don't see until we start, and human design is so good at revealing this to you, that we don't see until we start dissecting. Why am I in this pattern with people? What is it really about? Is it, is there something going on in my training and my conditioning that's not allowing me to be supported, or to believe I can be supported, or to believe I can be loved for who I am, or that I can be valued for who I am? So we have to really figure out that piece, because that's kind of that's sort of the key in the lock that starts to unlock a better relationship and certainly more higher states of well-being in every area of your life, not just in your relationship, which is kind of the beauty of this program. Because when you go through this program, yes, it's about relationships, but you really actually start to unlock a whole lot of other things as well. You build a whole new relationship with things like money, your body, your well-being. It's really quite profound to go through this. And of course, you've got to have clear understandings of your partner and clear expectations. If you have let's take this in the context of parenting, as we talk about parenting in this program too. If you have a child who needs a lot of alone time and doesn't have the energy by design to like do hundreds of chores and go mow the yard, you can't have an expectation for that child that that's what they're going to end up becoming, because then you're telling them it's not okay for you to be who you are and how you are. So when you're really clear about who the people you love are and how they operate, then you can also better meet them. You can communicate with them better. You can ask for what you want and need better. They can ask for what they want and need better. You can go and work through the conflicts and the challenges in a way that allows you to come into that third and final phase in relationship where you can really love, accept, and respect your partner for who they are. And of course, you get the same in return.
Mm-hmm. And this correlates, Karen, again, you briefly mentioned it, but I want to bring this in with a little more explanation of it, because y'all, Beyond the Ordinary show, we talk about soul recovery. We talk about overcoming limiting beliefs. We talk about connecting with our guides, how to be in alignment with source. What's our purpose? What's potential? How are we expanding into new states of consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. And so we're dealing with the oldest form of transformation, which is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship. We're going back down to the origins of where it all fractaled out from, and what the expectations of what's my purpose, what am I here to do, how do I compare it to another, where is this leading me to? And so again, a lot of people on today's call, Karen, I don't know how to find my purpose. I'm trying to start my spiritual business, but it's not going anywhere. Why am I stuck? How do I seem to be shifting, and I'm stuck in this one particular pattern that won't go away, and I don't understand why. I feel like I'm breaking through, but I'm not really. It's like the same thing for the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. How does this help with all of those?
Because what we do is we get underneath it all. So in human design, in quantum human design, this is really kind of, I think, the superpower of quantum human design. And if I take all the archetypes in the chart and I put them in a blender, and I blend them in with human growth and development and the stages of human growth and development from birth to death, what I came up with is basically there are 9 core archetypes at the bottom of the chart. These are 9 core archetypes. I call them the resiliency keys that are essential for you maximizing your potential, for you fulfilling your purpose, for you to get out of self-sabotage patterns. That's really the big piece there. Mm-hmm. So that you do create the relationships, you do create the business, you do create the abundance, you do create the life and the connection that you long for. Those 9 core elements, and I'll give you just a list of some of them. One of them is lovability. One of them is self-worth. One of them is self-trust. One of them is courage. One of them is empowerment. One of them is authenticity. One of them is decisiveness, knowing how to make good decisions. One of them is vitality, having the energy available for a relationship or whatever. If you're out of whack with any of those 9 core elements, it's going to make everything you're doing and everything you just talked about, it's going to be the source of why you're not breaking through, why you're getting close, but you're not quite breaking through. And part of what we talk about in this program is, how do you figure out where you're at with those 9 core archetypes, and how do you start cleaning those up? Because those are the reasons why we get stuck. They create when we are not. So if we're not, let's say, for example, if we're not living and creating meanings that embrace and embody the belief that you are lovable, that you can love and you can be loved. That one singular belief, if you don't believe you can be loved, it's going to impact every element of your life. It's going to push money away. It's going to push job opportunities away. It's going to shut you down. It's going to make it difficult for you to set good boundaries with clients. It's going to make it difficult for you to have a good, strong relationship, because you're going to walk in and that the entire time you're in that relationship, you're going to be doubting your partner. And it's not going to be because of your partner. It's going to be because you doubt your own lovability. Why would anybody love me? So when we get underneath to these core archetypes and we go through this process that's in this program of clearing those out, then you start to be able to have the courage and the ability to reveal your heart to the world. And you do it in this way where you are impenetrable, in the sense that, maybe impenetrable is not the right word. You're totally willing to be vulnerable because you have nothing to lose, right? Because your connection to your own self and your own self-love doesn't go away, and it's not at risk. And so you can be in the world with your heart wide open.
Yeah. And it takes us from a place of expecting something from others
Mm-hmm.
into a place of being in the freedom that engenders, not only for ourselves, but in loving acceptance for another, to give, to like be you. It's
Mm-hmm.
what we seek for ourselves, for someone to love us that much, to set us free and still allow us to love them.
Right.
And our capacity to do that with another, because we hold that field so steadily in ourselves, it's liberating. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole nother level of existence.
Yep.
This is phenomenal. So, and this also takes me, and I want to go back to this part of the special offer. It's wait, where did I see it? Where did I see it? Scrolling so fast. And again, we override of what is good in relationships. We override, we get to define, we have the permission to define ourselves in relationship to what abundance is,
Mm-hmm.
in relationship to what a good or soul relationship is, in
Mm-hmm.
relationship to what we consider healthy. That's
Mm-hmm.
what prescribed to us, and the consideration of what we consider is longevity,
Right.
and
Right.
vitality in our being, because we're prescribed boxes that we think that we have to fit in, and we're fed on it by the media and by the medical community and by the culture and beliefs. And it doesn't, well, I'm supposed to be abundant. I'm supposed to create money. I'm supposed to have X amount in my bank account. I'm supposed to have a marriage. I'm supposed to be 120 pounds as a woman who's 45 years old, whatever.
Right.
And the redefinition, the changing, the story, the narrative, and what's appropriate in the way that you're wired, again, which is why I love quantum human design,
Mm-hmm.
because it really brings compassion and understanding and dignity, Karen, dignity into who you are, rather
Mm-hmm.
than trying to mold you forcibly into what you're not. So this is powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like the dignity piece. That's a good one. I don't often think about that, but that's a really powerful one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of goes hand in hand, I think, with that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, blowing off the edges of, well, what is your good relationship? What if that means your partner lives in a different house from you, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't sleep together every night, or whatever. It's like there's no rules. You get to decide what works for you. But part of it is you have to uncover, based on all that conditioning, well, what is right for me? Because oftentimes we're told, well, as you just said, you need to get married. You gotta, you have to have sex once a week at least, or whatever the rules are that psychology says are the hallmarks of a healthy relationship. You get to decide what works for you. And when you do that, the quality of liberation and the quality of well-being that you activate in your life, and again, in every area of your life, is exponential.
Mm-hmm.
Because now all of a sudden you get used to being in a relationship where you get to be who you are. Now you take that out in the world, and now you get to take that into your business, and you get to take that into your workplace, and you get to take that into your community, and you get to take that into your other relationships. And all of a sudden you've become newly entrained to not compromising and settling for less than what you want and need.
So beautiful. So the invitation here, this might scare some of you with certain designs, but I'm going to say it anyway. Become the heretic. Your own story, really become the heretic. Dismiss the narratives that have tried to define you, and become the evolution that you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're all evolving, and you stepping into your authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
into the self-dignity, into the self-love, the self-awareness. It changes everything. Karen, where are people going to receive this? I know it's in the special offer here, but let's go through it. It's a self-study video lessons.
Yep. And it comes with exercises and worksheets and contemplations, and you can do it on your own. And you can also do it in partnership with your partner. So it's set up to do it both ways. So you can also go through this program with your partner. If you're relatively new to human design, or you're new to quantum human design, it does also come with a types ebook, so you can get some of the basics. But the program itself really walks you in great depth through all of the basics of human design. So, and in particular, you'll learn the basics about, hey, I'm a this type. What does that mean for me in terms of communication? What does that mean for me in terms of my need for alone time? What does that mean for me in the terms of how do I sleep, and how do what's my bonding strategy? So we go really deep into some some very customized information based on your type. There is a whole list that comes with you that talks about love by type, that goes deep into what do you need if your energy type is there are 5 energy types in human design. So it gives you a long list of what do you need if you're a specific type. And actually I created that as a list so you could hand it to your lovers or the people in your life. So if they're like, what is the human design thing? You can go, look, here's a list. I'm a generator. Read this list. This is what I need. So that you can, it's awesome. Kind of a hack for communication. And as it says here, once you're done with the program, we will also have, just for your listeners who purchase the program, we will have a live Q&A session where we'll look at your questions and look at any charts that you want to bring in or anything else. So absolutely, it really helps at the end to have a guide and to really be able to ask any questions that you need to ask.
This is wonderful. And again, you're going to learn about everything that Karen talked about and more. You can read more about it on the special offer here. Mm-hmm. More importantly for me, guys, it's, well, all of it. And to get the 2 hours live with Karen and a Q&A, it's spectacular. It puts it over the top. You can read through it. I just highly encourage it. This is so wonderful. And I'm going through challenges of growth, of cracking my heart open in ways that I haven't before, and the vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. in that, and even the decision to move forward without expectations, letting things go and things prickling up. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, hold on a second. I thought I was like, this was somewhere else. So I thought I buried it well enough that I wouldn't have to deal with it ever. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it just comes up by my learning how to communicate it mm-hmm. in partnership. It's on a whole nother level. The vulnerability and allowing that to express through instead of trying to fix it right away so that I can understand myself more fully and finally hold that part of me that needed mm-hmm. to be held that I didn't know mm-hmm. or I ignored. Maybe I did know and I ignored. Many of us do that as well. Y'all, it's whatever's in the cobwebs after all the clearings and personal development and everything you've done, it is coming up in the energy now, because what we're creating into the future requires such pristine energy.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
It does. What you all have been asking for, what you've been wanting, and the quality of that when you step into good enough is not good enough anymore, because I've suffered the not good enough long enough. Mm-hmm. When you get into that awareness and you insist, it shows up differently. And those things will come up, but they transmute so quickly mm-hmm. if we have the right relationship, the right tools, the right environment and guides, such as Karen, who can really take our hand, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I think this is this, as you said, this really kind of made my brain take a leap. I think the power of relationships is that they do offer, especially at this time, because there's not a lot of wiggle room in this energy field that we're in right now. Your relationships are going to instantly reflect back to you what's next. Mm-hmm. And so, really knowing how to interpret that well, that doesn't mean get rid of the partner. That means going, oh, this thing came up in my partnership. Oh, let me look at that and let me interpret that, because that's obviously a place where there's a narrative there that needs to shift. And if I'm going to keep moving towards this pristine quality of vibrational alignment and ushering in this new era that we're ushering in, then my relationship becomes a really powerful tool and a really powerful soul growth arena. So yeah, I think that's a really important point.
It's so powerful. Y'all take advantage of the special offer. It's a special price on Beyond the Ordinary, y'all. Karen has this and she's offering a community at $347 for us on BTO. And we ask for a discount for our community because we get to ask, right? Ask the question and maybe you'll receive. And we certainly did. Y'all get to access it for $247 and get the live Q&A with Karen. Yep. So this is truly a special offer. And again, so much transformation and shifts and self-awareness and love and excitement and vitality and hope and faith. Yeah. And leadership and so much more. All those things that make your heart sing, they're right there. They're calling. Y'all take advantage of this. The link again is in the chat box. You can also access the special offer and be able to click on the Buy Now button by going to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Karen28. I'm so excited about this. This is so fantastic, Karen. And I'm glad that you, of all people, are putting this together, because your capacity to bring in the energetics and the understanding, but also ground it in simultaneously and embody it. It's, again, that is what is shifting our consciousness and the paradigm right now on Earth.
I'll take that as a compliment. And let me make sure, as we're talking about this, you guys do know I live with a 13-year-old. So that illusion falls quickly at various points in time along the way, but I'm trying. And I think, that's the beautiful piece too, is that part of what I think we talk about a lot in the program is loving yourself where you are, and knowing that it's a process, and knowing that, it's an evolution, and it's okay. It's okay to be where you are. So
I love this. All right, Karen, I want to jump into some Q&A. Y'all, again, the link is in the chat box. Let's see. Someone was asking a question. Kathy wants to know how long the offer is valid for. She's an emotional authority, by the way, with a wink.
I think with emotional authority, as long as you can access the webpage, go for it. I'll keep there. At a certain point, we will do the live Q&A. If you missed that, then you can watch the replay. But for you guys, I'll keep it up. So.
Oh, wonderful. All right, y'all. We'll get to take advantage of that. Karen and I love to jump into some Q&A if you're open to it.
I'd love it.
All right. So Linda, let's get you to go first. Let me get you to unmute. And you guys can either raise your hand or type your question into the chat box, and I'll scroll through those and bring them up as appropriate.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Karen. I know I'm a manifesting generator, and how would you go about doing the manifestation? Because I know we have to be invited. I did do a little bit of it. I don't know enough of it to do something for the future, to get more clarity for it.
So as a manifesting generator, you don't need to be invited. Your way of making decisions is I'll give you all the different steps. Step one, have an inspiration, an idea, an imagining, be inspired and have a great idea and enjoy it. Let it rip and take some time and really, really dream on it in the mornings, right? Or whenever.
Okay.
That's step one. Step two, then you're going to become an earth detective. As a manifesting generator, you're going to then start looking at, okay, well, what's showing up in my field? And you're going to engage in your life with curiosity and wonder, because you're going to know the answer is going to show up. The manifestation of your imagination is going to show up, but you have to find the cues and the clues. That's step two. Step three is, once you encounter a cue and a clue and it turns you on and you get really excited about it, then go do it. That's it. That's literally it for the manifesting generator. Here's the thing for you though. Probably you're going to be doing 2 or 3 or 4 things at the same time because you have a lot of energy, and that's okay. And it's also okay if everything you're doing doesn't create results. Some of the things that you get drawn to because you need to expend extra energy. So if you're doing 4 different things and only 2 of them pan out, you didn't fail the other 2. It's that the universe is like, oh, Linda, she's a busy one. We should give her a couple of extra things because she's going to need to burn off some extra steam. And that's not you failing. So you're designed to multitask, and you're designed to not bring everything you do to fruition. And that's okay. The only thing I'm going to lovingly and gently say to you is that when you get frustrated, check in. Because sometimes for you, frustration or even anger means that your creative flow is getting disrupted. And if you're having that experience consistently, it might be good for you to take stock of what's going on in your environment. Is your creative flow being impeded in some way?
I like that. Thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Linda, thanks for tapping in. And me too, manifesting generator, no permission needed.
Me too.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right, there's it's a question that came in from Michelle, and I see y'all up there on the screen. I'm going to get to y'all also, and some other great questions that are coming in. But Michelle is writing about something that's coming up, and your understanding of human design about that. And I want to backpedal before I ask the question, because understanding what's coming is wonderful. And we have to know where we are right now also, and this evolution that we're going through on a personal level. So while the energies may be calling in a few years for a particular expansion of consciousness and other things, what are we holding in individuals that facilitate that now of what's coming? Or what is it that we're holding in the potential of it? And so I just wanted to preface this question with the power of the now and leave that in your field. But Michelle is asking that that 2027 is an important date in human design and in the world. And she wants to know if you can tell us more about the changes that that are written, if you will, to be coming.
I can, and this is a topic we talk about a lot. It actually, I came up last night in a class I was leading. So I want to keep it simple, because I think that, as you just said, we get so far ahead of ourselves that then we miss the boat. And really the focus right now is the work we got to do at this minute, at this juncture. So in human design, when the information received, there was a prediction built into the information. And the prediction was, we're going through a big shift. And that shift would really sort of concretize in 2027. And that shift was really the emergence of a higher expression of the human story, meaning our hardwiring is shifting and changing. I want to what a lot of people don't know is that this is not the first time this has happened to human beings. And actually in human design, we talk about how we had a big shift in 1782, which was the end of the scientific revolution and the age of sort of the beginning of the age of materialism that kind of crossed over into the quantum era. When everybody woke up in whatever day it was in 1782, we weren't suddenly living in post-apocalyptic, scientific revolution hell. Nobody noticed that the change happened. We're already in the change. We've been in the change for the last probably 150 years since quantum physics burst onto the scene, which, when something shows up in the material world, it's already an out picturing of shifts in consciousness. So the shifts in consciousness already have been happening to the degree to where the physical world and what we understand about the physical world has been changing because our consciousness has been changing. So I want to really stress to people, because there's so much stuff I see on the internet about, should I get into the prepper space? Do I need a greenhouse? Should I get guns? And it's like, we're already in it. And what's really shifting and solidifying, and you probably are already doing this, is that we are changing the way in which we create. We are no longer strictly limited to pushing the physical world with our bodies, our hands, and our work. We are moving into an era where we understand that vibrations create. And the more we move forward into this era, the more we're going to learn as a skill set how to consciously harness our vibrational frequency so that we can create from a place of faith rather than fear. Nothing cataclysmic is going to happen. I say that with the understanding that we are in a disruptive cycle. And part of what we see in this disruptive cycle right now is that systems that don't support this one core belief, and this is it, listen to this, because if you don't walk away from anything today within this, every single person, every single living creature or creation on this planet is valuable because it exists. It doesn't have to have a certain pant size or a bra size or a certain amount of years of education or money in the bank. The value of life is inherent in its existence. That's what's shifting on the planet. And when we all get that, then our relationships change, the way we do economy changes, the government changes, everything changes, because the minute we get that, it's never going to be acceptable again to starve a child, to not take care of each other, to abuse the environment. All that goes away, because suddenly we're like, oh, wait, this is precious. I'm precious, you're precious, it's precious, we're all precious. Woo, let's change the world. That's all that's happening. So I would lovingly and gently say, we're in a disruptive cycle because anything that's out of alignment with that belief is dying because it needs to. The idea of survival of the fittest, dying because it doesn't make sense. Actually, the science behind it doesn't even make sense. The idea that there are people who are more worthy than people who are not, or people whose skin color is more worthy than people, all of that's dying. And what we're experiencing right now is the dying gasps of people who don't know what to replace those ideas with because they haven't mastered yet the idea that all life is valuable because it exists. And we're going to get there. That's why we have to do the work that we do. And it's why we have to have good relationships and most importantly, value ourselves and stand in that enoughness, because when we stand in our own enoughness, we're not lacking anything. And so we're not in competition with anybody else anymore. Now my value is just as important as yours, and we create from a whole different place.
And we can see the value in others as a mirror reflection as well.
Mm-hmm.
The mirror reflection shifts in the most
Right.
positive of ways.
Right, exactly.
Profound. It's profound. Thank you, Karen. And Michelle, thank you for asking that question. Lori Miller writes, and I just have to share this. Lori writes, Karen is such an amazing teacher, leader, human being. I feel blessed to have found her and studied quantum human design. This knowledge has helped me, this knowledge has helped me help others in beautifully evolving, healing, and being authentically aligned with their true self. So this is from someone who's a coach, a healer, someone else. And there's lots of others, but I wanted to read that one from Lori that's popping up right now. So beautiful. Lori, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Lori.
Let's go to another live caller. How about we go to Mickey first? Mickey, let's get you to unmute and welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Mickey.
Thanks for being here, Karen.
Thanks,
John. I wanted to ask a question. I'm also a coach and a healer, and I'm considering taking human design in as one more tool in my toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
But my question today is concerning I have 20-something-year-old daughters trying to step into the world at a time when what it was for me is very different. So I'm trying to be very, very careful about guiding them. I have a manifesting generator in my house who just got out of college and is just here. She's working really hard to figure out what to do. However, I don't want it to be years and years and years. It's already been a year. And so I'm looking for advice on how to move a manifesting generator without squishing who they really are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear you. So just so that you know, I have 8 children. 7 of them are 24, between the ages of 24 and 32. We've had many of them live in our basement. So I know this story well. And you know, it's tricky. It's tricky because I'll say the very first challenge is that you're the mom. And one of the challenges is that whether we like it or not, we can't get ourselves unattached. And there's a dynamic there that can make it a little bit tricky. So one of the things I might lovingly and gently say to you is you might not be the one to do that work with her.
Okay.
And that's just, you know, that's just mom stuff. And, you know, as a manifesting generator, well, let me just throw this out here. I think one of the things we have to talk about redefining is we have to talk about redefining youth and the parameters that we define, that we use to the milestones and the benchmarks we use. I mean, what is it that said, okay, you graduated from college, you're 22, now you got it all figured out. I really think we have to create space to say people need until their first Saturn return, at least, to figure it out, which is like 28, 30, 32. Which is a different time frame, I think, for a lot than a lot of us were conditioned by. Like in my family, if I was still flopping around, that would be what my dad would have called it at 22. He would have been like, that's it, you got to go, you know, and really, yes.
I'm from that generation.
Yeah. And so if we look at the astrology of growing up, the astrology of growing up says really people aren't actually supposed to figure it out until they're about 30. And that a lot of young people, younger than 30, are experimental by nature. And so we say, oh, you have to fix this on this career and do this major and get out of school. And then you get there and a lot of them are like, okay, I did the thing, but this does not feel right for me at all. And then they're stuck with, well, then now what do I do? You know, one of my nieces actually also came and lived in my basement. She got a degree in computer science. And then, you know, somewhere in the middle of COVID said, I can't do this anymore. She moved in with me. A couple of months later, she went and got trained at Petco to groom dogs. She is happy as a clam. Let me just tell you, she is so happy. I've never seen her so happy. She's not making a lot of money, but she's happy. And so it may just be that your daughter might really need is permission to explore.
I'm giving her that now. She actually is considering becoming a human design expert.
Oh, cool. I like that. That's actually a good career. I think that's a good choice. So yeah, and I would say give her the freedom to explore. You still have to set boundaries around things like money and do the dishes and whatever. And if you're not, at a certain point, if you're like, you can't live here anymore, you got to be clear on the boundaries for your own sake. But I would not worry yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this relationships program, Karen, again, it's about relationships, not just about the intimate partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So what it does in understanding yourself and in your daughter in relationship and in dynamics on your each showing each other how to evolve is profound. And again, we release the constructs of expectations of what we've been taught people should be for themselves. And most importantly, for us in love, we set them free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How does that relate to me being a projector?
Oh, so you're a projector. Okay, so here's the frustration for you, Mama. You're like, I know exactly what you need to be doing, kid. And she's like, stop trying to control me. That's the dynamic, right, between the two of you. And so your challenge is to, first of all, say, honey, I have some thoughts on this. Is it all right if I share them? And if she says no, you have to.
I've been doing that. And it's hard for me. It's really hard.
Because if you are a projector, you see the potential. My littlest is a projector. I always joke, when she was 2, we had to lock all the car windows because she would roll, we'd drive around in the city and she'd be rolling the windows down saying, you should stop smoking. And why are you riding your bike without a helmet? What's wrong with you? So you have this natural ability to know exactly what your daughter needs, but it's her journey. And so yes, that is so hard for you. So
that helps me a lot because I know what to do, but it's still hard. It's still hard, but it's good. I mean, hard is good.
The relationship course, I'm telling you. We say it's hard, but we say things are hard, and then the training's right there for us, but it's hard, but the answer is here, but it's hard, but the answer is right there, but it's hard.
That is true. That is true. We do talk about the type to type dynamics in the program for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
The link, April, put the link in the chat box one more time to make it really easy to find. Mickey, if it resonates for you, if not saying that's the only way the dynamic will change with your daughter, but this is definitely something that I know Karen could guide you through and not only elevate what's potentially available with your daughter, but all other relationships as well. That projector dynamic, or I'm not understood, I'm not heard, people don't listen to me. I hold a space that people just don't get because this is where I am and they just haven't evolved, or whatever that happens to be. Is once you discover how to communicate that in a way that can eliminate expectations, where you know who you are, where you can ask directly and say directly what it is that you mean with compassion, love, and dignity for others, it changes everything. It changes everything. So it's a tool that's available here. And there's more. It's just what resonates you and step into. There's so many modalities, so many great teachings, so many great guides that are showing up to demonstrate for us what's available, and find one that resonates with you, and man, dive in, or woman, dive in and expand, because your soul wants it. And God knows we would love to receive even more light from your brilliance, because what you're sharing already is so beautiful that we can only begin to imagine what else you have access to. Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
Again, the link, y'all, is in the chat box. Offers $247. There's a special discount for Beyond the Ordinary. You get the live Q&A with Karen. Read all about it if you want to. And I say, just feel and click buy. Feel and click buy. Super easy. Take advantage of it. All right, Mickey, again, thank you. All right, Kathy, let's go to you. Welcome to the call.
Hello. I printed out, I was watching, I think a couple of years ago, some of your I think it was weekly teachings you were doing, classes. And but then my schedule changed and I couldn't do it. And then recently I just found out that I had, for some reason, put the wrong date in my chart.
Uh-huh.
So I just printed it like earlier because I knew you were going to be on tonight, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to be on. And so yeah, I just really, I'm a manifesting generator too, but I'm looking at this and I don't remember some of these from the other chart, but I guess I kind of just want to know what's like the most important basic thing to know. Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, my incarnation cross and channels, and I'm like, okay, it's just, is there like one main thing or a few main things that are like really important, or are they all the ones that are listed here, that all of it, the type, inner authority, and all of it? I mean,
so I've been a student of human design since 1999, and I'm still learning new stuff. So I do want to
studied with the founder, right?
Yes, I did. And so I do want to say there's a lot to know, and also it can be really simple. So the most important thing for anyone to know about their human design is their type. And so your type is manifesting generator. So type, and then I would add next to that authority. So hopefully your chart also says your authority. Do you see that on there?
Yeah, it's creative, authority is emotional.
Okay, perfect. So here's what that means for you. Just like, and everything I just said for Linda in the beginning applies to you too.
Right, I was listening to that.
Yeah, good. So have ideas, juice those ideas up, become a 3D detective, see what feels good and right, and follow the things that feels right. But, and here's your but, you have emotional authority or creative authority. What that means is that because your emotional energy has natural waves, and what that means is that for you, sometimes if you don't give yourself enough time to wait until you are 100% certain that this decision is the right decision to you, if you leap into it, you probably have a tendency of making decisions too quickly and then feeling like, dang, that felt so good, but now it doesn't. And why isn't it sticking? And really doubting your own ability to make effective decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did that more in the past, and now I've been.
Yeah, it's kind of the advantage of walking the path of life a little bit.
You do that, right? Yeah. But yeah, I was listening to a lot of your classes, and I was just kind of like lost. And so I just thought I'd ask now, kind of like initially, what's the most important to learn before diving in, and then looking at the book, and then but okay.
What I love about the recorded sessions and the special offer, because in classes, a lot of times, if there are live classes and all that, we're trying to keep up and we just kind of keep going over, and we feel that there's so much information that we don't go back and review and allow it to integrate. And what I love about the video recordings, the self-study pace, is that it gives time to integrate. It's not the pressure of, I don't get this now, I'm going to miss it because we're moving on so fast. And so the way that you're putting this together, Karen, I think is so beneficial for so many, especially if this is a newer type of modality. And again, it's not difficult. If I understand it, y'all, you can get it. Trust me, because I contain information, right? Yeah.
And I would just add, so two other things. So what we didn't talk about in the beginning is I am a nerd. I am in the middle of doing my PhD. I love science. I love research. I love learning styles. That's one of my big things that I'm excited about. So I created the program so it really fits all learning styles. What that means for you as a manifesting generator with emotional authority is that even learning doesn't happen necessarily for you in the moment. So you might study something and you might sit there going, what is this? And then next week you'll be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, that's totally
for you. That doesn't mean that you're not brilliant. It means that for you, you have to experience it, feel it, sense it, and have it percolate through your being until you get that click. And so that's where like a self-study program is really ideal for someone with your kind of design, because as John was just saying, you have time to wait for that click, and you're not on a schedule and you have to master it at a certain point. You can be in the flow of your own inner epiphany, if you will, or inner integration.
No, I am thinking about getting it. I just last week treated myself to some other thing for my birthday, so maybe like next month. But no, that makes sense, because I'm same thing. I'm always curious and love the research, and I'm always researching things and like to learn. But like you said, sometimes I don't always quite get it, but then a little bit later, if I go over it or hear something or read something else, then that light bulb, man, it just comes right on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings so much compassion and self-awareness.
Right.
Or we would have judged ourselves before because we don't keep up as quickly as others. I'm with you, Kathy. I'm the same way. It's like, how do they get that so fast? I don't get it yet.
It depends on what it is. You know what I mean? I have in the past, but people have always kind of like sometimes made fun of me, but I'm like, I don't care. Like, I can find myself, right?
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
But there's also that period, Karen, that you talk about and human design talks about, and a certain stage of our life where we get off the roof.
Mm-hmm. For some of us go on the roof and come off the roof. Not everybody does, but yes. But that being said, I would say, again, when we look at lifestyles and we look at life cycles and we look at astrology, we are designed to go through maturing cycles. And there's a maturing cycle that happens for any of you who have a 6 in your profile. That's the weird fraction on your chart. If you have your chart, for those of you who have a 6 line, that's your Chiron return. That happens somewhere between the age of 48 and 52. We all go through a Chiron return. We all have a pretty major maturing cycle that happens at that point. And that cycle, is really the initiation into a pretty intense decade. We don't talk about this a lot, but 50 to 60, if we look at it just astrologically, not to mention physiologically for women, it's a huge decade, right? We go through menopause. A lot of times our kids grow up, they leave home. We've got aging parents. We've done everything we should do. Now we're in the phase where we get to choose what we want to do, hopefully. And for a lot of us, we're like, well, I forgot what that was. Right. And so 50 to 60, which is really sandwiched between Chiron and Saturn, is really this decade where the universe sort of grabs us by the lapels and pulls us into the mirror and goes, hey, honey, are you really ready to fulfill your purpose now? And you're like, yeah. And then Saturn comes along at the end. And it's like, are you sure you're ready? Because we're ready. And, you do have the option to go, next life. And then the universe is like, fine, go on cruises. We don't care. But for a lot of us, that 10 years there is a really big proving ground. I mean, we get forged and formed and we get invited to really explore. What do you want to let go? And we get invited to get really radically honest with ourselves. And it's a powerful, powerful time for us to really emerge as wise leaders once we're done with that 10-year formation.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I want to ask this question from Ed. I know we're nearing the end of the call, but I think this so relates to what you're speaking about. Ed, I would venture to say that you're between that 50 and 60.
Yeah.
Based on what you wrote. But Ed writes here, may I ask Karen, after much effort trying to fix, with a capital F-I-X, family relationships that dissipated to no added value, destructive, damaging, and disappointing for me, recently I decided to move on without any family connections. Are you able to pick up any energy to confirm, not that this is my best way, that might be my best way moving forward, but I've waved goodbye to an inheritance of many zeros, but I'm fed up of the will being dangled over my head, and my newfound self-worth makes me realize that whatever the dollar amount is, it's not that cheap.
First of all, I just want to say, I want to acknowledge you. I think Ed, I think it was one of the first comments that came in. I really want to acknowledge you because I know that that's a really painful thing to do. And that takes a lot of courage and that takes a lot of self-love. So I just want to acknowledge you because that's a big, bold move. And I think you should really acknowledge that move for yourself. I think the other thing that you brought up in your comment is something that is so powerful. And that is, what defines value? And again, going back to, you're valuable because you exist and you deserve to be treated respectfully, lovingly, kindly, in a way that honors you. And as you said, there is no dollar amount that can buy that. And there is no dollar amount that can make it worth you compromising that. So, you're really, I think with your move, you're kind of standing on the leading edge of this evolving consciousness going, hey, we're going to redefine value. And now we're not going to measure it with zeros in an inheritance. We're going to start measuring value by how connected are you to your own sovereignty? And I'm going to take that as my bank account, because that actually is a sustainable bank account. Here's the thing about money. Money's not sustainable, especially when it's money where you have to compromise yourself for it. You'll lose that money in some way, shape, or form. You will. Something will happen to that money. But you standing in your value and making that kind of a boundary for yourself, that becomes sustainable. That's sustainable value that will endure and last. And honestly, in the end, you'll probably confer more value onto yourself than you ever would have received from any inheritance. So good for you. Do I advocate that everybody should leave their family if they drive you crazy? No. Do you need to set good boundaries? Absolutely. If your family doesn't follow your boundaries and they continue to mistreat you and disrespect you and not do things to you that are consensual and honoring and give you dignity, to use John's word, then you've got to set a course for yourself in the dynamic of that relationship where you set those boundaries, because sometimes that's the lesson our families bring us. It's not pleasant necessarily, but oftentimes that's part of our soul curriculum, to learn to stand up for our value. And right now, when we're alive, that feels like them versus us. Probably when we cross over, you'll be high-fiving each other going, hey, we did that one good. Okay. So try to remember that it's part of the soul curriculum. They're your teachers. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with them in this lifetime. They're bringing you lessons. Honor and love yourself enough to take care of yourself. And set good boundaries. Good job, Ed. Good job.
Congratulations. Karen, this is phenomenal. Y'all, this is, again, the dynamics of relationship. Ascension, expansion, communication with our guides, going to other levels, a shifting paradigm, all begins with us. And there is no us without relationship. And relationship truly is our greatest teacher. We seek intimacy from these other places, and relationships are right there, right in front of us. Those things that we look for are right here in our own home.
Yep.
Really, they're right here in our own home. That which you seek is right there. And the expansion of that will lead to the expansion of the consciousness and awareness of that light that is available in all these other forms as you get to know your own light. It just is, and overcome the limiting beliefs, the acculturation, the education that has put you in boxes that can't contain you anymore. So again, what Karen is providing here, the technology, the awareness, the tools, the transmission, the embodiment of who she is, and what word am I using? The pollination that occurs by being in her presence. Osmosis that happens by being in her presence. It's tremendous. So y'all work with any one of Karen's program. We just happen to have a special offer here that I think you can really relate to. It can be highly beneficial, whether it's this one or another one. Go deeper into Karen's work. Open yourself up. Get to know yourself more in the intimacy that you look for from others, and things will shift without any question whatsoever. Karen, it's so much fun. I love having these conversations with you. You're so articulate. And again, that comes just from knowing and passion and understanding, and that you teach that passion and knowing and understanding to other people. What a gift for us to receive. So thank you in what you do and how you do it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for being here tonight and creating this event, all of us together.
All right, y'all. Thank you for being here. So wonderful to see and feel all of y'all. I bow down to each and every one of you, and namaste. See y'all soon.